Howdy, it's me again. I had a little bit of a break over Christmas, but now the biggest action is done, and I'm back to normal. I'm Florian, author at LifeScienceMentor.com, and today I'm talking about 10 truths that have taken me the longest to accept, and I believe they are general enough that they can take all of us a long time to accept until we finally come around to see them. Or maybe you have a different idea than I have on what I'm telling you. But in any case, these are things worth pondering and taking your own take on and thinking about rather than just accepting it blindly. So maybe that could be the overarching topic of today's episode. 10 things that we take for granted that may just not be so. As someone said, the most dangerous things are not those that we learn are different. The most dangerous things are those that we think are right, but just aren't so. Right? So the first thing is that actually nowadays you can have USB powered Christmas trees that work with glass fiber optic, and they change the color. Now this is actually a nice little cute little tree I got from a friend, a Christmas tree just next to my computer. I can have it with the USB connection, and it changes colors. It's pretty nice actually. And so in on a more see now it's green on a more serious note, the more philosophical questions that I was pondering, I have them right here, right? So the first thing that was difficult for me to understand was that the more value you give, the more money you get. See, I thought that you get more money by just working harder, or being very talented, or having a lot of knowledge, right? So 20 years ago, I started my journey into science, and in academic science, it always counts, especially in the subjects I took, biochemistry, for example. So let me tell you about the journey. I wanted to study biochemistry because that fascinated me, and in high school that meant having to work hard to get good grades, because in Germany, where I started studying, you don't the capacity for students studying biochemistry was rather limited. So you had a lot of students competing for 20 to 40 places per semester in every university. And I really wanted to do that. So I worked hard, studied hard, got the grades to be accepted at Hanover University in Germany. And so from school, I had learned that I have to get very good grades. So I studied for good grades, though that continued in biochemistry studies. And only over time, and that was back in 1995, only over time I learned, see now it's red, fascinating, the same color as the head. No, so over time I learned that that you can be successful as a scientist also if you don't have the best grades in school, because we got other people joining biochemistry studies that had waited a certain number of semesters due to their worse grades. And they were still doing fine. In some cases, they were even doing better than than the original native biochemistry student. They called us biocomedians, by the way. There was a nice little back and forth between chemists and biochemists. Essentially, you had people that were not really starting with biochemistry, but entering over the chemistry or physics or biology side. They were more practical. So the native biochemistry students, they often they often were, and myself included, they were often trying to be like very good in theory, but not really that good in practical aspects. Going so far as we wouldn't really be as fast sometimes to execute experiments, as fast to come up with a clever idea. Because see, I think coming up with clever ideas is different from being book smart. It's like a little bit the difference between street smart and book smart. Okay, so now I got to the end of my studies, I got like the first doubts that maybe being book smart is not something that will automatically guarantee you success. And then I started my PhD in biology in Dresden. I came to the US, did my postdoc, and I've only recently finished with that. So doing postdoc, you realize that you spend a lot of time studying and biochemistry is just one field in academia. There are other fields in academia that are worse off. So basically, you spend a lot of time. In my case, I started in 1995, and now it's 2015, almost over. So 20 years I studied biochemistry, biology, sciences, and even though it's my passion and I really love doing it, I earn less than a first year Google, first year employee from Google or from any big tech company that just finished high school. Why is that? Why is that? Because there's no real demand for what you do. And that was difficult for me to understand. I thought being at university, studying, that is valuable, right? So, and that is like really hard work, and we should earn a lot of money for that. But that's not how the market works. And being indoctrinated from school that you have to play by the rules and be like a good student, right? Never deviate, always be nice, play by the rules, and you get rewarded. Or a modern variation of that is do what you love and the money will follow. And those are some scams that people flock, and I belong to those people. We flock to that, and we thought, yeah, if we really behave nicely, then we will be rewarded. But it's not the case. And I'm glad that that's not the case, because I got to learn that that is not really what is important in life. See, I believe that whenever you provide a lot of value, you will earn a lot of money. And my goal in life is to be really happy at what I'm doing. But money is not something that I want to neglect. Because for me, I see money now as something that signifies the value that I'm giving to other people. I mean, the big computer company, they like Apple, Microsoft, they produce a lot of hardware, a lot of software, do a lot of things that people want to buy. So that's why they are rich. But not a lot of people want to listen to talk about biochemistry. Although I still believe people want to listen to that, it's just not very nicely marketed. But it stays here. It stays the same. If you produce something that is of demand, that is of value for people, people come to you and people give you something to get what you have. They give you money to get the value that you provide. And if you study in academia and you study English literature, then don't be surprised that you don't earn much money, because nobody really is interested in English literature. Yeah, 0.001% of the population in the East Coast and West Coast of the United States loves to go to museums. And I love museums. And they love to go to listen to people, to authors talking about their books. And that's great and fine. But when I read Aaron Clary's Worthless, he had an overview. So what people really, if you ask people, like 100 people on the street, what they like, what they spend their money for, vacation, an Xbox, a car, a new TV, they spend it on healthcare. So what these people spend their money for, what they want is electronics, entertainment, and of course stuff for their health. If God forbid they become ill, they need to have a cure. So that is something of value that you provide. And I'm now more in tune with that. And it took me a long while to realize that. And part of why I have started this blog is to figure out whether there are different ways for me to provide value, not just sitting in an academic ivory tower and just provide some value for other researchers that know what I'm doing. There may be about like 5 people that know what I was doing as a scientist, but this blog I have already 500 or more people like you that watch this blog and these videos more than once. So with this blog, I'm already providing more value. I'm already communicating more value to people than with my studies as a biochemist. And while I'm still looking for ways to get into industry or get into a way to make my research medically relevant, and I'm talking more about that in the future on my blog, there still remains, if you do something purely academic, or if you're really good in school, nobody cares besides the teachers and university profs. And that was difficult for me to understand. But thankfully, I hope I'm still flexible enough to learn. But that was the one thing that was very tough for me to understand. The more money you get, the more value you give, not the hardest work you do or the best grades you get. That is irrelevant for getting money. That was difficult to understand. And yet our modern academic establishment acts as if you have to go to school, you have to get a regular employment, you have to be a straight A student, you have to always perform very, very well. And that's just hogwash. There's just so many people that perform well that have never graduated college, that it just doesn't matter how good your grades are. Number 2 is about religion. That people who tell you they are atheists may still believe in something. And that something is often the state. So I'm not believing in any particular God, really. Although my father's a reverend, and I have friends that believe in God, so that's fine with me. I had this one talk to a friend of mine where I thought about what would happen if there was no God, and I personally felt liberated. Now that's my personal experience, and I still have some moral guidelines I live my life under, right? So there may just be some God or some supernatural thing out there. I just don't know. Maybe you can call me more an agnostic than an atheist. But what I failed to see was that most people that call themselves atheists and we don't believe in God, they often are there are some people who are violently opposed to the notion of any God. And often those people believe in something else, and that is the state. See, those people believe that, the state will provide everything for us, and we will be well off because there's welfare, and the state has infrastructure and allows us all to live, right? Those people basically have changed their religious views into state as a religion. So they don't need to tell people how good their new God is, because the state is kind of all around us, right? It envelops us. So they don't need to convince anyone of their religion, because everyone is already a member of that religion, right? So I only learned that by talking to other people that did believe in God, and talking to people that brought that. I think Mike Cernovich brought that to my attention in one of his blog posts, and I started thinking, maybe that's true. People that don't believe in God, maybe they still believe in something. And more importantly, the John Lennon song Imagine, right? And he says, "Imagine there's no heaven." When I listened to that song with my dad, who was a reverend, my dad told me that actually that is not possible, a world in which people don't believe in a God. And because people need to believe in something. So I thought back about that, and yeah, maybe that's the case. Maybe we do need to believe in something, and maybe, maybe we don't need to think about. Maybe sometimes we already believe in. If we believe in the state already, right? Then we can just make the step of saying, I don't need any God. So I don't believe in anything, but yet we act in a way that's congruent with the notion that the state is our new religion. So we got to be very, very careful what we assume is true in life. So, truth number 2, that people who tell you they are atheists may still believe in something, and that something may well be the state. Number 3, that people have to want to change, actually doing it. So ever since I realized that, I ever realized that that you don't get this, you don't earn money, you don't get value by following good grades in school, following good grades in university. More realize that people who don't believe in God still often believe in the state. When I started to realize that and started to become more individualistic, when I started to work out more, think about clean diet, think about improving my mindset, reframing negative thoughts, and so on and so forth. I try to tell people of that. And people react with like, okay, that's nice, but they will not do what you think is good. And that's maybe a good thing, right? You shouldn't be able to just tell people, do it this way, and they just follow you. But I always thought that, you really, it's great. I read something, it's great, it worked for me. I just need to tell people about it and they'll be so much happier. But that's not true. People have to want it themselves to actually do it. And the way to get them to want that themselves is by actually living by example, and then they'll start maybe doing that themselves. For example, when we're starting to work out and eat like low carbs, then a colleague of mine after a while said, "Look, Florian, I'm also eating less. Eating less. He told me that he was canning, no pun intended, his soda pop. He had a daily can of Coke, and he shelved that. That actually made me really happy to hear that. But there was a point when he really wanted to change that. He wanted to lose some weight, and so he ditched the soda can. And no argument from my side could have convinced him. He all of a sudden wanted it himself. So he did it. Right? So you need people to want to do it themselves. You can't make them change. That was number 3. Took me a long while. Number 4, and this is important, that when you play by society's rules, you may end up becoming a slave. And so we don't have slavery, right? We do our own decisions, right? We are free. Well, yeah, we are free. However, we still pay taxes, right? We are dependent on the state. We are not really free. You cannot even buy property and then you own this property for yourself. You have to pay property taxes, right? You stay connected to the government. Stefan Molyneux talked about that in the video. I've put that into the accompanying blog post. That he said you cannot scare animals really into. Animals don't have a concept of tomorrow and the end of their life. So humans do have a concept of being, of dying one day, right? We are afraid to die. Most of us are. We are afraid to die. And we are afraid of pain and torture. So you can threaten humans with torture and death. And they will do what you want them to do. So you control them. Very obvious, right? I mean, that's what every blackmailer does, right? You threaten killing somebody's family or somebody or torturing him, and people just fall in line and do what the perpetrator wants. Can't do that with animals, really. You can't really threaten people with death in a month if they don't behave. You just threaten animals with death in a month if they don't behave a certain way. But humans, you can. And if you are a ruler, a dictator, and you basically own the people, you like a dictatorship scares people into death, right? So they'll behave. They do your bidding, and so you stay in power, or you gain a profit in any way, shape, or form from that. So you enrich yourself. And Stefan Molyneux called it human farming. That maybe sound extreme, but in a way it's true, right? Instead of animals, you have humans, and then you realize humans even give you better profits if you promise them that, if you tell them that they are basically free, right? So basically what he's saying is that democracy is just, you let people vote, but nothing much changes in the political progress. So people are actually not really free, but they have the illusion to be free. But it doesn't matter who you vote for, right? There's not much changing. And you can never choose to own your own property because you have to pay property taxes. I mean, if you don't pay rent, you pay still property taxes, and you are not really free. At least that has been the case until the end of the 90s, until the internet came around and gained full steam. So you play by society's rules because society promises you benefit. You don't need to die alone. You get a pension. You get a nice life in the future. And it's the same scam as when you threaten people with death in the future. You threaten, or you get their hopes up for potential riches when they retire. And then people go there and they more or less voluntarily sign themselves up to be slaves because they think, well, in the future we'll become rich. So we have to work for the man, for the employer, for any employer, and we have to give away our finite time, 5 days a week with 2 days off. But 5 days a week we are slaving away for somebody else to reap the profits from us. And that way we are never really free. We have bought so much shit that we have to now nurture that. We marry, we are dependent, the children are depending on us. So, well, that is very natural. We have no way of really taking a lot of the money we earn and keep it for ourselves, right? We have to pay taxes. And that's a form of slavery. And that may sound crazy, but if you think about it, it's true. We're not on our own. We are basically all part of a huge society where we are kind of slaves to a whole common sense of society, right? Of the government that provides for society, right? But who says we need the government to provide for us? Who says that we need? We are human beings. We can set our own. We can create our own world, right? But you play by the rules, and then some people, they buy items to gain status, right? So then they have to take up a loan to buy off these expensive items, and then they are basically having indentured servitude. They have to work. They are unfree because they have to work, but what they work they cannot keep for themselves. It goes into paying debt. So debt slavery, that makes us unfree. Debt makes us unfree. Now, if the government picks up a lot of debt, what are we as a whole society? Indentured servants. And that is important to understand. Now, a lot of people now use the internet to sell their own stuff. And some people are even minimalistic. They don't really stay in one place, have a house or anything. They travel around, or they just live where it's cheapest to live, and just live from what they get online, and then that's good. They don't try to become any big rank in society. Those people are actually the freest that you can think of. Or alternatively, the people that are really, really, really rich and sit on top of the food chain. But even then, sometimes those people are, they're just brought in. They're leading. They're CEOs of some corporations, but still, one wrong comment and you get feathered and tarred on Twitter. You lose your job, and that's not really free to me either, right? So think about it. That it took me a long time to see, but when you play by society's rules, you play by somebody else's rules, you are still enslaved. Number 5, and that is another lie that is perpetrated, is that in terms of dating, the lovable loser, as seen in any Hollywood movie, does not get the girl. In Hollywood movies, you have the lovable loser who the girl falls for in the end. But in reality, you don't have the nerd that like the hot girls still want to go for. No, you have to be dominant as a man. That is the way to get women. Not being a submissive, weak male that somehow is clumsy but kind of charming, and no girl can withstand his charm. That's not how it works. And I realized that when I started in 2013, when I started, I took some programs from a dating company, and I went out and I hit on girls in bars in the evening, over the day, in the street of New York. And I realized that what gets rewarded is not like, oh, excuse me, I don't know, like indecisiveness. No way. What gets rewarded is being almost outrageously forward and aggressive. That gets rewarded, aggressiveness, not submissiveness. So I learned that firsthand on myself. And there was also, I'm not the only one who joined like a dating company and went out to meet girls. And, there's a huge dating pickup artist scene online. And men exchange notes. And so you realize that, yeah, girls want to have aggressive, or women want to have aggressive men, or a dominant man. Not be helplessly aggressive that you get like, that you have a short fuse and blow up at anything. No, but really decisive and dominant. That's I believe that's the natural role. That's the natural hierarchy of the sexes. And women don't want submissive guys. Maybe they want submissive guys, that are rich and can provide for family. But that's not what their initial instincts are going for. And once again, if you think back what I said before, that when you play by society's rules, you end up enslaved. Yes, that is exactly the problem here. So basically, how most men are held basically in the status of slavery is by telling them, oh, if you just behave and play by the rules, you will get the girl of your dreams. Look at all those Hollywood movies that we put out for you. Look at them. That's how you gotta be. Just play by the rule. Be a nice guy. Bring her flowers. Invite her for dinner. Then you get her. But guys, if you grew up in high school, you looked around, the jocks that got the girls, those were not the one that brought them flowers. No way. If you brought flowers to a girl, I guarantee you it went to you, it went for you like it went with me. You get, the girls, some girls are friendly, they're happy about seeing you, but you don't really get laid. Not with flowers. Not when that's your first first tactic from your toolbox, right? So the lovable loser does not get the girl. That was the truth. Took me a long time to learn, but I finally realized. Number 6, snap judgments cloud our minds. And I remember I was very judgmental earlier on because I was on this trip of like work hard, be a good student. So I kind of looked a little bit distrustful, let's say like that, on people that were partying all the time. And a friend of mine took me aside at one point and said, you're judging those people, but you don't know them. You don't know them at all. You don't know whether they're just superficial, that what you claim them to be. You don't know that, right? So I realized that, I actually didn't know them. So, that snap judgment was clouding my mind. But then, number 7 is that snap judgment can give us a pretty accurate picture, right? Later on, I realized, there's the book Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. Maybe just take that off. It's a little bit. Right. Okay, so there's this book Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. And Malcolm Gladwell says that basically a lot of decisions are made in an instant, right? It's your gut that decides. So the reason for that is that our subconscious takes up like a lot of impressions from the environment and starts computing them. And then when we make a decision, that's our conscious mind telling us that we made a decision, but in reality, a lot of other factors have factored in that this influence the decision, not our conscious mind necessarily, right? So, for example, they attached cameras to tennis players that were returning. How do you call it? Like the set, right? In tennis, they were returning the balls, and the player who did the set, who hit the ball. If they're professional players, world ranking players, they would move so fast that a normal person, you cannot follow the ball and then react. So they attached cameras and they thought that what returning players were looking at were, the position of the hand of the player executing the set. But what they found when they attached the cameras was that the returning players were looking at the other player's hips. So you realize then what you think you look at, your mind thinks, you look at the position of that player's hands when he makes the set. But that's not true. Your mind is actually looking at the hips of that person. So our subconscious does a lot of more decisions that we are aware of. So snap judgment is really often a wise decision by our mind, just not something that we are aware of immediately. So that's why it's wise to listen to your gut, to actually do listen to snap judgments. So snap judgment can be good or bad. You want to make sure that that prejudices are not clouding your mind, right? Because they kind of form the base of your mindset. If your mindset is based on scarcity, not abundance, you'll make worse decisions than if your mindset is based on abundance, for example. Number 8, that you don't convert someone, but rather recruit. If you sell something, you don't convince someone of your product. You look for the people, you screen the people that are already interested in your product and just entice them to like your product just a little bit more, a little bit enough that they come getting it, that they come buying it. And that really is the case. You have it's useless to try to convert someone to your side. No, you try to just, that person that you talk to, you want to find the people that are already positive towards the item that you sell, and then you demonstrate that this item really has the benefits the other person is looking for. That's how good sales work. Not by staying forever with those people that you have no chance to convert. Recruit the ones that are already on your side. That's the way how you grow friendships. That's the way how you hook up with girls. That's the way how you sell items. You put your energy into getting those that are already on your side. And to be honest, 10% of people, my observation by talking to 1,000 girls, that 10% of them hate me no matter what I do, but 10% love me. Not much I can do against it, right? And that's in any case, whatever I do, and whatever anyone does, there's always a number of people that hate you no matter what. So don't worry about them. But because there are always people that like you no matter what. So just worry about them, be happy about them, and then grow with them and recruit them to your case. Number 9, it was interesting for me to learn that I really am a morning person. I always thought I'm a late night person, but that was really more like stresses from a deadline that had to be kept, and I procrastinated until the very last minute. So then I was sharp the evening because it had to be done, right? But really, I'm more productive in the morning. I'm getting up at 5 a.m. most of the time now, or at 7 a.m. the latest, and it's just the best day when it starts at 5 a.m. It's absolutely great. I'm happy. I love it. And I can really get a lot done in the morning. And number 10, and that gets us back to the society, obeying to society's rules, being slavery point, is that yearning for the weekend can be a sign of us really being unfree and unhappy. Think about it. I was 5 years ago. I was always looking forward to my Saturday because I didn't need to go to work on Saturday. I didn't have to have the commute on Saturday. I could sleep as long as I wanted. And only after a while I realized, wait a second, that's not a good way to live. So you're happy that you can sleep long on Saturday? That means you're in kind of a jail the rest of the week? And realize, yeah, it's kind of what it is, right? I'm jailed by having to go to work. And so the 5 days of work for 2 days of freedom is really not a way to live. Because it's a perpetual slavery, perpetual unfreedom. You know, you invest 5 days of your precious time that may be over any time. You invest that for getting like 2 days back. Come on. That's a bad interest rate, right? And that's no way to grow yourself as a person. So, figure out ways where you can work 7 days a week completely, and then after a while, just don't have to work any day anymore. And I'm not saying you shouldn't work at all, but I want to say that the best deals is when you don't need to work, so you can do whatever you want for work. You never want to do a decision because you have to do the decision because you didn't have any other option. You always want to make a decision from the point where you have a lot of options. Then that makes you happy because then you always know this is the decision that I always wanted to do, and I do it because I love it. This is the one reason that doing what you love is not an advice you should give to people when they start out. When people start out, they should really do, if you're 20 right now, you should do what earns you money and gives you a job. You focus on learning to love what you do, or at least keep your ego outside while you work, and then look forward to try to retire as early as you can, so that if you get your basic needs met per month in an automatic way, then you can really do what you really like doing, right? Imagine you can earn $1,500 a month from a side business online. It's not unheard of, it's definitely possible. And that can already allow you to live in a more rural area in somewhere in the United States or Europe, and have your basic food and shelter provided for. And then you start doing something that you really love to do. You earn even more money with that. That's the way to go. And with that being said, I close this video. Thank you for staying with me. And it has been a little bit longer today. I hope I could provide you valuable information. If you enjoyed it, like it and or subscribe. I'm happy about every subscriber I get. And I'm happy to answer any comment that you have, any suggestion. If you have if you want to share anything that was difficult for you to understand, but eventually you did, let me know. Let us know. It will be interesting to see if the problems I was talking about are common or whether I've overlooked something that is also very important to people. So don't hesitate to let me know. And I wish you a nice start in the week, the last week of the year actually. Enjoy, and I see you again tomorrow. Goodbye.